Today we're going to be looking at some bootleg Plants vs. Zombies plushes that were specifically released in Mexico. And while in this video I'm only going to be going over a few of them, as well there's literally hundreds of these bootleg plushes, so I've only picked out a few for this video, but in the future I might make another video about them. But yeah, these plushes span from being extremely weird looking and strange to being extremely cool looking. I would actually really like to get them. So yeah, there just seems to be a really big variety with this plushes, but yeah, with that said, welcome to a look at Plants vs. Zombies Mexican bootleg plushes. Starting off with the first plush, we have this balloon zombie. Now you can clearly tell that the face on this plush is based off of the Links and Basic zombie plush, but it seems that they actually did a pretty good job with it. And while the hat on this plush actually looks really good, I like how the blue fades into the red and it seems to be nicely stitched onto the head, but the yellow part seems to be made out of a felt material, so it could get damaged. And while the balloon on this plush also looks really good, but it is stitched onto the zombie's head, so it could get unstitched, and it's also kind of placed in a weird position. And while there's also a string tied around the zombie's body that's attached to the balloon just to give it a bit more detail. And while the clothes on this plush look extremely accurate looking, and they definitely did a good job with it, and the zombie's only wearing one shoe, which also looks pretty good. And while the shoe is actually really detailed, unlike most zombie plushes of Zombie, it even has shoelaces on it, which is just a lot of details, especially because most zombie plushes just have normal brown shoes. But yeah, the company that made this plush definitely did a great job of it, and while it actually looks really good, I would definitely recommend getting this one if you could find it, especially because it's one of the only balloon zombie plushes that were ever made. Next up we have this strange looking sunflower. Now first off, the leaf face on this plush just looks really weird, as though the leaves aren't even attached to each other and they're just really far apart. They're also just way too big compared to the face, and they just go out way too far, and the stem on this plush also looks really strange, mainly just because it's way too wide. And while the petals around the sunflower's face also look extremely strange, as though there's very few of them, and also they're just way too big. As though they should have just made the petals smaller and just added more of them, but instead they just added these giant petals, which makes them just look really weird. And while the stitching on the face doesn't look too bad, and it's probably the best part of the entire plush, it's really the only part of the plush that looks somewhat accurate. And while the color of the face is also accurate, so yeah, just the face on this plush is only accurate, but if you include the rest of the plush just looks horrible, and the face is basically the only part of the plush that looks somewhat normal. Next up we have this winter melon. Now for the leaf base on this plush, it actually looks really good, but it only seems to have 2 leaves on it, but if it does have more, it would be a lot better. And while there could potentially be more leaves on this plush that are just behind the plush that we can't see in this image, but even though there's only 2 that are visible, it still looks pretty good. The embroidery on the face looks really good, and well, in general, the actual melon part of the plush looks great. As unlike the Links and Winter Melon that could actually get damaged with the stripes because they're made out of an iron-on material, this one's actually part of the plush. And while it seems that they actually got the plush material to be a dark blue, light blue, and even lighter blue color, and well, it looks really good. And while this is definitely one of the best winter melon plushes I have ever seen, but for some reason the only really strange detail about it is that it's wearing a hat. I have no clue why they did this, as well, but it's just a detail that's just really unnecessary, but for whatever reason they decided to add this blue hat with a yellow outline. I guess it does make the plush a bit more unique and stand out a bit more, but it's just kind of a really strange detail. But yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite winter melon plushes I have ever seen, mainly just because of how much detail is on the actual melon part of the plush. Next up we have these football zombies. Now there's actually tons of these zombies, there's one for every single team in the NFL, so yeah, for whatever reason they decided to make these football zombies that just have a plush for basically every team, so yeah, it's just kind of a really strange set of zombies. And one thing that I also noticed about these plushes is that sometimes the plushes on the same team have different jerseys, so there could potentially be hundreds of these plushes. As I've seen some zombie plushes that have the exact same team but different numbers, so there could potentially be hundreds of variants of this plush, so yeah, who knows how many of these plushes actually exist. But yeah, all of them basically use the exact same pattern, but the only thing that's really changed are the colors obviously, and also the number on the jerseys. But yeah, this is definitely a really strange set of plushes that I don't really know how many of them exist. And another strange thing about these plushes is that they're just really big compared to basically any other zombie. But yeah, this is definitely just a really strange set of zombies that exist for whatever reason. Next up we have this Yeti Zombie. Now this Yeti Zombie is actually a blue color instead of a gray color for the skin, which does make it a bit more unique, but the face does kind of look weird. As though the eyes are just kind of facing in a strange direction, and overall the embroidery just kind of looks a bit strange on the face, but that could also just be because the face shape is kind of just really squarish. But yeah, the actual fuzz on this plush is made out of this really fuzzy looking material, and I don't really know what material it's made out of, as well basically every single bootleg Yeti zombie uses a different material for some reason. But this one actually does seem to be pretty high quality looking, and in my opinion it doesn't really look that bad besides the embroidery on the face. Next up we have this really strange looking Cabbage Pulp plush. Now the main reason why this plush looks really strange is that for whatever reason the cabbage part of the plushes are just really spiky. As instead of just being a normal shape, they're for some reason just really pointy, and I don't really know why they did that, but it just makes the cabbage pulp look a lot weirder than it actually should look. But yeah, the leaf base on this plush doesn't really seem to be a leaf base, but it just seems to be a bunch of green plush material on the bottom of it. As well, the entire leaf base just kind of looks really weird, and I don't really think it's based off of anything. And while the embroidery on the face just looks fine, but yeah, this plush overall just looks really strange looking. Next up we have this strange looking mummy zombie. Now you could obviously tell that this is a mummy zombie, but I can't really tell if it's a bucket head mummy zombie, as well, it seems to be a bucket on the head, but I can't really tell. As well, it doesn't really have a strap around the head like a normal bucket head zombie would, and it just seems to just be a huge white piece of plush material on the top of the head, which just makes it look really strange. It also has some blue on it for whatever reason, which seems to be made out of a felt material. I have no idea what that blue is supposed to be, but it's just kind of there for whatever reason. And while the embroidery on the face looks really bad, mainly just because all the details are just kind of squished together. I think if they spread out the details a bit more, it would end up looking a lot better. But for some reason, they just kind of made everything just way too close together, and it just ended up making the face look a bit weirder, especially because there is still extra space on the face. They could have added a bit more things. But yeah, for the actual clothes on the mummy zombie, they're kind of basic looking, and there doesn't really seem to be anything special. I'm just really confused what the thing on the head is supposed to be, as well, it seems like it would be a bucket head mummy zombie, but I can't really tell if that's a bucket, and also I have no idea what the blue stuff is supposed to be. Next up we have the scientist zombie. Now the face used on this plush once again just looks really strange, mainly just because the embroidery just kind of looks weird. I don't really know how to explain it, but just by looking at it you could kind of tell it just looks off. And one of the most noticeable part about this plush is that the hair is a white/blue color. And while this hair is made out of this really fuzzy material, and it kind of changes between a white color and a blue color, and it kind of blends well together. As well, there seems to be some darker blue and also some lighter blue, so yeah, it ends up blending pretty well together, but it overall just kind of looks really strange. Especially just because, once again, I really have no idea what this is based off of, or if it's even based off of anything, as though sometimes these companies just make these random plushes that aren't based off of anything. But yeah, the tie on this plush looks pretty good, and the clothes look fine, and well, once again, they're just kind of really simplistic, and the pants on this plush are just a normal basic zombie pants. But yeah, the only really bad part about this plush is that the face looks off, but besides that, the rest of the plush looks fine. Next up we have this strange looking jalapeno. Now they actually did a good job with the shape of the jalapeno, but for whatever reason the stem is facing the opposite direction where it's actually supposed to be. As though the stem is supposed to be facing forward, but for some reason it's facing backwards, so it does make the plush kind of look weird. The jalapeno is also just a really dark shade of red, and they should have made it a bit of a lighter red color if they wanted it to be a bit more accurate looking. And while the eyes on this plush seem to actually be pretty good looking, and they're really nicely stuffed, and the mouth is also nicely stitched on. So if they simply fixed a few things like switching the stem in the right direction and also making the jalapeno just a bit of a lighter red color, this plush would actually look pretty good. But yeah, once again, there's just kind of a few details that just make this plush look off, and also the stem is just way too long. Next up we have this pirate zombie. Now for the pirate zombie's face, it uses this really light green skin color, and basically every single detail on the face looks weird, but the eye patch actually does look really cool. As unlike a normal eye patch like most Plants vs. Zombies pirate plushes, it actually has a lot more detail, as though they actually added a lot of embroidery to it. So that's basically the only part of the plush that I actually really like, as though the rest of it just looks really random looking. But yeah, the mouth on this plush kind of looks strange for whatever reason, as once again, I can't really explain what's wrong with it, it just kind of looks off. But yeah, the bandana and the shirt on this plush are made out of this black and red material, well, it looks fine. It is a pretty strange combination, as though there's really no pirate zombies that ever look like this, and it also has a red beard. And while the beard is made out of a similar material to the scientist zombie's hair. And while the pants on this plush are also a bright yellow color, which doesn't really match with the rest of the plushes, but just kind of seems that they took a bunch of random colors and added it to a pirate zombie plush. Which makes the entire plush just kind of look strange, as though none of the colors really fit in together. Next up we have this ice split pea. Now the leaf base used on this plush looks very similar to the sunflower's leaf base, and same thing with the stem, except the stem is just a bit shorter and also it's just really wide. But yeah, for the pea shooter's face it looks fine, but we could only really see one eye in this image, but it seems to be pretty good looking, and it also seems to be pretty nicely stuffed. The repeater's head also looks to be pretty nicely stuffed, and also the eye seems to be pretty good, so it's honestly really not that bad of the plush, but they should have made the repeater head just a bit bigger. But it also just doesn't really make a lot of sense to make this plush, as though there never really was an ice split piece, so yeah, I have no idea why they did that. And well, it was overall just a really strange plush to make. Next up we have this peanut. Now this is the only peanut plush that was ever made, and well, it actually looks really good. And well, for the face used on this plush, the eyes are actually really nicely made, as though they just seem to be really nicely embroidered on, and the shooter part of the plush is just really nicely stuffed, and it looks great. The actual design of the plush looks pretty good, as well, but uses these dark brown spots just to give it a bit more detail, and all they did is just take the top head and just put it on the bottom. As well, all they basically had to do is make one part of the plush and then just use the exact same part of the plush and just put it onto the bottom of it. But yeah, they did a great job with the shape of it, and well, overall this plush just looks amazing. Especially because it's one of, if not the only peanut plush that was ever made, so if you want it, this is basically your only option for one, and I would actually definitely recommend getting it, as well, it seems to be really high quality and just really good looking. Next up we have this Giga Football zombie. Now the face on this plush is kind of hard to see, but it kind of seems to be nicely stitched on, but the eyes do kind of look strange looking. The actual helmet on this plush seems to be stitched onto the head, and well, but seems to be made out of this fake leather material. It also has some stitching on it, which looks pretty good, and it also has some felt material in the front of it for the white part of the helmet. And while there's also a skull nicely stitched onto the shirt, and overall all the clothes on this plush are pretty high quality and they look pretty good. And while basically every single part of the plush is just extremely accurate looking, and they did a great job with it, and well, I'm actually really glad they made this plush, as well, it's the only Giga Football zombie plush that was ever made. As well, there's been a few normal football zombies, but this is the only Giga Football zombie plush that was ever made to my knowledge. Next up we have Strawburst. Now, out of any plush in this video, I would definitely really want to get this one out of all of them, as well, this plush just looks really high quality looking. As well, the embroidery on the face looks really good. The only really strange thing is that the right eye seems to be on a completely different plush material than the actual plush itself for whatever reason. Which is just a really strange thing that they did, and I honestly have no idea why they did that, but besides that, the rest of the plush looks great. All the details on this plush are extremely accurate looking, and it is also really nicely shaped and also really nicely stuffed. The leaf face on this plush has a good amount of stitching on it just to give it a bit more detail, and all the shapes on it look pretty accurate looking. And while this definitely has to be one of, if not the most accurate plush in the entire video, as well, the entire plush just looks really good besides the right eye, but besides that, the rest of the plush just looks amazing, and they did a great job with it. And while this is the only option for a Strawburst plush, so yeah, if you want a Strawburst plush, this is the only one that you could get. And well, for the next plush, we have the Apple Mortar. Now, this was obviously made by the exact same company as the last plush, and well, it looks just as good as the Strawburst. As though the embroidery on the face once again looks extremely accurate looking, and they did a great job with it. The leaf face also looks extremely accurate looking. It could have a bit more leaves on it, but besides that, the leaf face looks fine. And well, you could actually see the apples on the head, and it looks pretty accurate looking, and they seem to be pretty nicely made. But it does seem that the stem of the apples are made out of a felt material, so it could get damaged, but besides that, the rest of the plush looks fine. So yeah, just like the Strawburst plush, I would definitely recommend getting this one if you could find it, as well, these plushes are actually really hard to find because you can't really find them anywhere outside of Mexico. But yeah, if you do manage to either find the Apple Mortar or Strawburst plush, I would definitely recommend getting them, as well, no other plushes of the characters exist, and also they just look extremely accurate looking and pretty high quality. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please like and subscribe and comment down below which plush in this video is your favorite, and yeah, have a great day.